async and there's people across the world at all different times. But for me, it's almost midnight, so I'd rather actually start sooner rather than later, and kind of just jump into to I guess an overview of what Babylon Finance is.
Yeah, happy to jump in. Thank you guys for having me. I've been kind of looking through the Discord and the website and stuff, and it seems like a really cool project. Um, I
Thanks,
guess the
thanks.
TLDR on Babylon is we're a community-led asset management protocol. So what that means in simple terms is we make it easy for groups of people to deposit capital into a common fund and then basically collectively decide through voting on what to invest it in, and then that community of people share in the kind of gains or losses from that investment. And so there's a bunch of different use cases. One could be like a friends and family investment club where people want to pool their
Hmm.
capital and pick some tokens to invest in together. It could be
Yeah,
more of like a professional hedge fund use case where maybe there's a like professional team of 10 people that use Babylon to manage kind of LP capital.
yeah.
And then another use case we're looking into now is almost like social farming, where you could deposit capital into, say, like a stable farm and kind of trust the community to rotate you into the highest yielding vault without you having to kind of manage all your farms yourself. So
Okay,
that's more or less what we're working on.
it's it's really cool because it almost feels like not really a one-click solution, but it simplifies, I guess, asset management for people, and I think that's where it it kind of it shines because when we're thinking about, I guess, with our community or DAO communities and treasury management, having the ability to kind of place that into a garden or its own small hedge fund in which you have a controller who maybe is the better strategist out of the bunch and you can just provide liquidity to it. I think that's kind of interesting and kind of simplifies the whole process of you having to, I guess, create the strategy for yourself. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm actually curious on your guys' end, how is the metagame treasury being managed right now? Is it in a multi-sig?
Yeah. So I believe we part of the treasury is in a multi sig. Other parts are just like all over the place. So there's been like there's almost like a hodgepodge and a mixture that we're still trying to determine clearly on. Okay, this is this and this is that. But we know there is a certain amount of treasury which could be utilized within the DeFi sector, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't really use it there just yet. And we're in a process of kind of coming to some realizations and some ideas about maybe what we could do with the treasury, where whether it be invest right back into the community and look to just invest in the people that work here, or to try and, I guess, use the treasury to create yield and invest that way. So there's like many different ways to kind of think about use of the asset that we have, and I think that's where the difficulty kind of comes in. Is that there's many different ideas, and in DAO space, things have to be done, democratically. There's no autocracy here, so I kind of wanted to introduce you to the community so that we had an opportunity to see other options that exist outside of I guess what some of the initial thoughts have been. So that's it really. But I like the idea, and I think it could be useful in DAO space in particular, with DAO treasuries in particular. So yeah. um
Yeah, it's a great point, and we've seen that with a lot of DAOs. There's so much idle capital just sitting there that could be earning a yield, but it's difficult to find a way to do it that feels aligned with kind of the more democratic nature of a lot of these projects. And I think that is
yeah,
a niche that Babylon could help
it's
fill, where instead of trusting a professional individual to like manage your capital on Enzyme or DHedge or something like that,
mhm,
in theory, anyone in the community could join the garden, which is what we call these investment funds on Babylon, and be able to potentially submit investment ideas or strategies and also
yeah,
potentially vote on those strategies. So not only is it more democratic and aligned, I think, with the governance structure of a lot of projects, but I also think that in certain situations, I think that teams actually have an advantage in investing. Like there's definitely
yeah,
certain types of investing, like high frequency trading or something like that, or like, like day trading. Like it's probably
mhm,
better to do that as an individual
yeah,
because you want maximum flexibility. But in terms of like analyzing, say, all the small cap tokens that you could purchase on Ethereum right now. Like that's
Yeah.
too much for any one human to manage. So that might be something that's actually better done by a team.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure, because I think one of the first things I kind of enjoyed about joining the Babylon Finance community early on was the fact that you kind of had just like our Discord with our many channels, you had all the different channels kind of segmented for the different sectors of the crypto sphere, different types of investments, be it I don't know, NFTs or index tokens, this, that, and the other. And people would kind of just come in and drop little nuggets of alpha where you could kind of I guess take your fancy and kind of pick out or the best out of the bunch, and it would almost like aggregate all of these cool pieces and sweet pieces of information that you might be able to act and make investment decisions on. And obviously this protocol now takes that another step further, where it's, you know, automated strategies. And I think it lends its hand into a concept that has been talked about a lot recently, and it's like squad wealth. Like it's
Yeah.
this term of squad wealth, and we're all these different squads in this little metaverse, and we're all trying to, I guess, accumulate wealth together. But it's really weird when you get into conversations about squad wealth. Sometimes you also get into conversations regarding so like public goods and the commons. And if you're looking to accumulate squad wealth, is that more of a capitalistic frame that you're placing within your community, and is that something that's actually aligned with the commons or the public goods that we're looking to kind of build? And that was some of the realizations that we kind of got when we were talking about treasury management, whether we should just invest straight into the community or we should actually try and speculate to build the community.
It's such a hard question. It's funny. I'm actually on the board of a nonprofit that's going through this right now because it's a nonprofit. All the money was donated. There's like quite a bit of capital sitting in a treasury, and it's earmarked to go help individual people, but it kind of feels like a waste to just have it sitting there. It's in this nonprofit, it's actually in dollars, so it's inflating away. But then it comes down to this question of like, how does it get invested and who's ultimately responsible for that? And it's definitely a difficult problem to solve that I think each community kind of needs to figure out on their own. But the hope is that if certain communities want to manage it in a more democratic way, that Babylon could provide a pretty flexible solution. And that could be a small number of community members that are kind of like more actively managing the capital. Like maybe it's like 5 of them, and they're the ones that have permissions to submit investment strategies and vote on them. Or maybe it's much more democratic. Anyone in the community can submit investment strategies or vote. And then you can kind of set up a garden to your own kind of like time, risk, and liquidity preferences. So maybe you just want to like put that capital in like a diversified portfolio of urn vaults. You know what I mean? And you're fine earning like a couple % yield on it, or maybe you want some percentage that's actually like being invested in smaller mid-cap tokens or things like that. But I don't think there's a right answer, but it's an interesting question to play around with. And the last thing I'll kind of riff on this is, if you think about it, like I don't know about you, but when I invest, I kind of have a bunch of different chat groups with different friends. And like if I'm interested in a new space like NFTs, like I'll just go to my friend who knows about NFTs and informally ask his or her opinion on it. And I feel like software kind of like helps take those real world interactions and just like bring them into the internet. And I feel like that's what Babylon is doing, is like a lot of people do this already. They talk to their friends kind of informally about what to invest in, what their thoughts are on investments. And like, we're just trying to put a little bit of like structure around it. And if you think about like investing, like in the US, for example, it's really expensive to start a fund. Like even to start an LLC or something, like it's a lot of paperwork. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of legal expenses. And now you can spin up, like anyone in the world can spin up a fund for like $100 in gas. Like that really, I think that's going to change the game, and people are going to start using these different structures in ways that they haven't been used before.
Very true. I never really thought of it like that as well, because I don't know, I'm looking at it from a totally different perspective in, I guess, from the UK and stuff. We don't have, well, I know they have funds in the UK, but I'm not sure. Whatever, my exposure to it is very much limited, and I think that's an interesting perspective, the fact that you can create something like that so inexpensively. I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty of DeFi in general anyway, the reduction of costs, right? That is definitely a huge factor into playing into why we like to invest in this space. And currently, Babylon Finance is at the beta stage, and what can we expect in, I guess, the later developments of Babylon Finance's protocol as a whole, or your protocol as a whole?
Yeah, so we have more or less like three phases leading up to launch. We had private alpha, which is
Hmm.
us, and we have about 70 seed investors. So we were dogfooding the protocol. As of the last few weeks, we've started beta, which is a private beta. So it's invite only, and we're sending invites via these Ishtar Gates, these Ishtar Gate NFTs that give you
Yeah,
access to Babylon, kind of playing on like the historical narrative.
it's
And that'll
awesome.
last for probably the next couple months. If you guys are interested in invite, just shoot me a DM in our Discord. I'm all over the Babylon Discord, so you'll be able to find me there. Um, and right now, there's kind of like two types of
Hmm.
invites. You can get a creator invite, which gives you permission to actually create a garden in Babylon. So that's like an investment fund where you would like set the thesis and then invite other people to deposit capital into that fund. There's another type of invite where you could get an invite from someone who's already created a fund, and
Yeah.
then that would give you permission to participate in their fund. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of like what's coming down the pipe, um, and I can't be too specific about this, but more or less, we have a governance token called
Hmm.
Babel, and 70% of that has been reserved for the community. So 20% went to investors, 10% went to the team, the rest
Yeah,
is for the community, and 50% of the total supply has been reserved for a rewards program.
it's
Um,
amazing.
but that rewards program will be up to like community initiation and community vote. So our governance module will be deployed in the next month, and then kind of like what happens after that is out of our control because
Hmm.
um, we're minority token holders. But
Yeah.
it is definitely possible that there will be like a Babel token rewards program starting up at some point in the future. So I would definitely just be on the lookout for what the community decides to do on that front. And then we're aiming for public launch a couple months from now.
I was gonna say, like, that's really brave of you guys to kind of take that type of approach to your tokenomics, and what was the philosophy behind that? What made you say, let's actually attribute a lot of the token supply to the community and not to our investors or ourselves or this, that, and the other?
Yeah, I can take zero credit for this because Ramon, who's our CEO,
Yeah.
he made this decision before I joined.
Okay. Fair
But it was
play.
actually one of the things that attracted me to the project was you see a lot of these protocols and it's like a pretty large allocation goes to the team and to like
Yeah.
early investors, and there's like not a lot left over for the community. And I feel like of even like our lawyers and other people have been like, wow, like you guys are being really generous on the kind of like community allocation front. And I think that that's actually like advantageous long term because I
For
think it
sure.
gives us the ammo to build a really strong community. And I'm like one of the things I love about DeFi is I believe really strongly that companies should be more wholly owned by their employees and also their users. Like
Yeah.
if you think about Facebook, how crazy is it that 100% of the content on Facebook was generated by users and users own 0% of the equity? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you're
It's
just going on
nuts.
Facebook, you're creating content, they're selling that content to advertisers, and they're not giving you any
A
cut
buck.
of the
Yeah.
revenue. Like it's,
Yeah.
I think in a couple of years that's just going to feel absurd. So I love this experiment of protocols actually giving governance tokens to their users so that they can be, in reality, like governed by their users. It's just who they're beholden to.
No,
So we're trying to
it's
follow
the
in the
future.
footsteps.
It's definitely the future, and I think it's going to catch on. I think that's one of the main reasons why DAO space, um, DAO space is even in its inflection point at the moment where we're starting to see more and more people kind of joining different communities from with all their different missions, etc. Just for that same idea, right? You work within the DAO, you earn the DAO's token, and then you try and build and grow the DAO itself to see like a value accrual on that token itself, and it's a mixture of being almost like employed and also being like an entrepreneur. Um, I think some people call it like stakeholder capitalism, and it's
Mm-hmm.
super 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 interesting because it turns its head on the current paradigm of work, and I think that is honestly like a beautiful situation for many people, especially when people are kind of under under invested in, or they're underpaid for the value that they create. So I think all these new systems are going to be super interesting, and to have like Babylon Finance a part of that roster is going to be so cool. And it's cool to obviously introduce you to the rest of the community here, because I'm pretty sure some people do know a little bit about Babylon Finance, but not all of us do. As I said, I didn't want to make this like a long conversation, a quick 20 minutes, half an hour kind of going through various different aspects of what Babylon Finance is. We're fortunate enough to have a good couple of like community members here. This is a lovely surprise, because I was like, it's late, but then I remembered it might not be late in the US or wherever else other people may be. And being we're a worldwide community, we have many different people here tonight. So if there are any questions, the floor is open. Come on, guys, don't be shy. you know, it always goes like this, doesn't it?
I'm in an airport terminal, so I'll keep it brief, and it might be loud. Thank you for being here, Chase. This does sound incredibly exciting. Can I extrapolate down the line when Babylon is live, that I can recruit, let's say, my very knowledgeable investment-minded friend to create a garden, or anyone, like, how gated will be the creation of a garden feature, and who will be able to do that in the future? And I'm sorry if you already talked about this.
No, that's great. We should get into nuts and bolts a bit. So the way it works is, yes, like Babylon, it's a protocol built on Ethereum. It'll be completely open, so anyone that wants to like could interact directly with the protocol, or use our DApp, which is like basically the front end to the protocol, and then using that, anyone would be able to create their own garden for whatever purpose they want. And then there's a bunch of different parameters you can set when you're creating your garden. So you could, for example, create a private garden where you have control over who you invite to deposit into the garden, or you could create a public garden where anyone on the internet could deposit capital. And then there's also like different sets of permissions. So you could also assign permissions within that garden as to, of the people that deposit capital. Let's say your friend Joe deposits like 5 ETH. Does Joe have permission to suggest investment strategies, or does Joe have permission to vote on investments? So there's like a million different kind of combinations of permissions you can create depending on how you want to run the garden. So in like a completely open garden, anyone could deposit, anyone could suggest an investment strategy. So that could be like, I want to, long Bitcoin, or I want to invest in this Yearn Vault. Or it could even be, we also support multi-step strategies. So this could be something like, I want to lend ETH on Compound. I want to borrow DAI against that ETH. I then want to sell that DAI for ETH and deposit it into like an ETH Yearn Vault. So it's basically like a leveraged long ETH farming strategy. And then different people can vote on that. And then the last thing I'll say, just in terms of like the nuts and bolts, is there's also like customizable like performance bonuses. So you can actually allocate a percentage of the profits from each strategy to the strategist, so to the person that suggested that strategy, and also to the voters. So it kind of creates this cool financial incentive for community members to be active and actually be suggesting investments and voting on them, but they're only rewarded if those investments are profitable. So it's kind of like taking the 2 and 20 from a traditional hedge fund model and democratizing it within a community.
Amazing.
So, with the garden creators, will there be like a future implementation for like either a reputation score, or say like a stats board for how well that garden creators gardens are doing?
That's such a good question. We don't have this yet because we're just resource constrained and early, but this is definitely something we want to explore down the line. And I think it could be kind of one of the most powerful aspects of Babylon, which is right now, like, I think most people like look for alpha or like follow a lot of investors on Twitter. Mm-hmm. But I personally don't feel like Twitter is a great tool for this, because the Twitter algorithm rewards engagement, not returns. So actually, it's like kind of hard to know if these are good investors that have a ton of followers, or if they're just entertaining. And so I'm super excited about the potential of like Babylon being able to like verify the returns. And you could almost like have leaderboards of like, these are the top strategists. Like these are the people in Babylon that have recommended the highest performing strategies. But you can also have like top voters. Like these are the people that just tend to have really good taste as to like what's likely to perform well or not perform well. So yeah, we're definitely looking at having like both leaderboards for gardens and for individual members. And then we don't know exactly how it'll work yet, but one thing that I'm personally interested in exploring is also like having reputation weighted voting. So in theory, once you have enough of a track record on chain, you could start to weight people's votes by the performance of their prior votes. And that starts to get, I think, really powerful. So TLDR is not yet, but definitely like something we're thinking about and want to explore down the line. I'm curious too if you have thoughts on that or if you've seen anyone do that well in the space.
I personally haven't seen anybody do it well. I was kind of coming from the mind. I run a few trading bots, and so that is, there's not a reputation score, but you can definitely look at any bot deployed on the platform and copy their strategy if you want. But you can also see, how long each of that user's strategies have been deployed and how well they're doing, all the stats, all the parameters, and thus you can kind of see how that bot creator, how they're generally doing in all their pools.
Super interesting. I think also, Chase, regarding like the gardens and having top performing strategists, it would be really cool if there was almost like meta gardens. I know we love to throw the meta tag on everything, but a meta garden where I could pick strategist X, Y, and Z and combine their strategies into a totally new garden, and they'd reach some type of, they get some type of incentive or yield out of that as well based on how well their strategies perform. Like that would be awesome. And that's just, I guess, me spitballing random ideas right now, but Babylon Finance just seems like a real interesting protocol. It's different to some of the things that we've seen been created recently. I think things like Formation Fire, where you have like 4 products, and this is more like that, but the world's your oyster, because it's up to the creators, the strategists, to come up with what the garden is. So super interesting project, and a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited to see where it goes. It's all a big experiment, but I definitely am like a big believer in power to the people, and so I'm just excited to see what people use the protocol to do, and I have no doubt we're going to be surprised by it. So I would love to get you guys involved. If there's anything we can do to help on the treasury management front or get you guys beta invites or whatever, just let me know, and yeah, I would be honored to get you involved.
Okay, cool. Well, with that being said, would it be okay to ask for a couple of invites for the people who are on this call at the moment?
Yeah, like go for it. All you have to do is, like, right now the happy path is Chrome and MetaMask. So if you just DM me your MetaMask address, I will, in the next batch, probably in the next 24 hours, I will then transfer you the Ishtar Gate NFT, and then that will give that address access to the beta DApp on Babylon.finance.
Awesome, and thank you for coming.
For sure. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate taking the time.
Take care, man.
You.
All right, bye.
Bye.